The audio right now. You got it. Did I just blow your ears out?
Yeah, I think you did.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Going to video right now, maybe. Hey everyone, welcome to Massive Chalice Teamstream number 14. Happy New Year. Hey, 14 in 2014. Hey. I just put that together. This is pretty strong. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go through, it's been 3 official weeks. I know we said we would do these bi-weekly, but, you know, it was the holidays. I don't know. I'm not, you know.
It was a leap week.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay to skip one. So, so we have some work that we did before the holiday break, and then some work that we've done since we've been back this week. And we're officially in production, and we're going to talk about more of that later. I just remembered that we were supposed to talk about what it means to be in production and how... We'll talk about that next time. It'll be awesome.
Next time.
I'm joined by John Burnhelm on the Wheels of Steel today, taking questions on the Twitch stream. And I've also got over here on Red Couch, I've got Andy Wood, art director on Massive Chalice. We're going to be talking about some art. Feel free to ask questions as we go, and we'll get them at the end of each segment. We're going to jump into some hardcore design diagrams first. Ready?
Let's do this.
Let's take it to the design diagram. Okay, so this was, we wanted to do some art about the, what are we calling it? The hero info screen.
Yeah,
no?
the character management screen.
Character management screen.
We're calling them hero management screens now.
And that is this part of the diagram. So this is where you'll actually manage one of your heroes. You'll be able to check out their info. So this is going to be their name, their house, their age, their class, their traits, and then also any temporary buffs or debuffs that might be on them, either strategy or tactics. We'll get into that in a little minute. Right. And then from there, you'll be able to jump over to the equipment. So that's going to be their weapon, armor, and items. And then you'll also be able to jump to their talent tree, and you kind of jump between these interchangeably.
And the idea is that anywhere you're going to be able to see one of the heroes or compare two heroes, you're going to want to get access to this information. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to figure out a way we can make it modular so that all these different places from the game, you're going to want to be able to access this information. And this is kind of trying to figure out where all that will come from.
Yep, and John put this together, so if you're in the Keep view or the Cap, any of these places, it's like any of these UIs will all feed into, mostly you'll be coming to the info, and then you'll be able to swap to the other ones, but it's just, we kind of want to bring you into this circle of hero info at the most relevant place. So when you're on the deploy screen, you'll jump in and you'll be on the equipment tab, and if you have skill points to spend and you come in here, you'll be able to, there'll be kind of this special skill, hey, you got skill points kind of button that you can hit, and that will jump you into the info screen on the skills page. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. We just want it to be as universal as possible and use it for, you'll see these red ones are the actual tactical battle UI. I want to make sure that you can get into this and have access to all this stuff from either strategic side, strategic layer, or tactical layer, and I think it will work great. It's also, you don't want to do, even though we're kind of making 2 games, you don't want to do 2 completely separate UIs, one for tactics and one for strategy. So we're trying to come up with something that will be universal and could work in both views. So that was where we started with this thing.
And that will let us level up on the battlefield, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's right. Being able to access all of that stuff in strategy or tactics. Look at this, it's like Ghost Mouse. I'm not even touching it.
Ooh.
That was creepy. But yeah, being able to access this screen on the tactics, on the tactical battlefield, if you level up while you're fighting, you should be able to come in here and spend a skill point and then actually use those skills for the remainder of the battle. Yeah. Your stats will go up. It's a little bit of extra work, but I think it's worth it. And this was something that you were kind of arguing for, John, because if you have an older hero, this might be their last battle. And it's kind of rad that if they level up, say they do level up to level 10, like the max here, and they actually unlock this ability, it's kind of cool because they're not going to have another battle. So it's kind of cool to let you come in here and level them up, get this this big ability, and then use it for the remainder of the fight, and then they'll die, and it'll be sad. Yeah. You'll be sad.
It's a cool moment,
but it can be really cool. So Derek did these. So Andy, let's talk about this. So these shots of the hero view, he did a couple different ones. Again, this is very similar to a lot of different kind of like exploded views or zoomed in views of characters that you see in other games. We're just looking for something that's functional and also gets you like really connected to the character, because this is the closest you will ever see a character in Master of Chalice is when they're like on this equipment screen or on this info screen. We need better terminology for that.
It's tough.
Yeah, they are.
But whatever it is, this is where you'll see the hero. And these were done before we had the concept for that additional panel.
Yeah, the third tab.
So there'd be another info panel, is what we're calling it. So you'd be able to swap between those. But Derek did these three,
Yep.
and after talking about it, so this is a theme. We'll see this when we talk about the keep view as well. But characters looking off, not looking at the player. We want the game to have a sort of first-person feel to it, where you feel like you are taking the role of like this immortal ruler person and stuff, and so it feels more detached to have the character like looking off to the screen. I thought it was cool, something to try, but I think that
I agree. I think it
just
does,
not right.
but I also agreed with what John said, that it kind of sets up the expectation that you can rotate him. It's like he's
totally.
already.
Totally. Whereas when he's sort of posed like this or this,
Yeah, I don't feel the same.
you don't
way
really
about
feel
those.
like you have to be able to like spin him around and stuff.
Yeah.
And part of that is the pose too, like with the feet planted like that. Imagine this guy is animating and breathing and has a really cool stance where he's just really planted, then I think that'll bring him in the environment more. This looks a bit more like just a chess piece.
Yeah.
Somebody also mentioned the fact that there's a lot more depth to the environment behind him.
There's all this room
Set
back
up
here.
that same expectation, yeah.
Yeah.
And we want to show, we're trying to, just for wider context, right, for everybody, we're trying to show some of the keep in there to give you a feeling of a place and try and tie it in with the design of the keep that we'll see on the map in the strategic view.
And this one, we thought like this window is really cool, and it gets some of the architecture and the sense of place and stuff, the brutalist architecture that we're using. But we're kind of worried that it might blow out the character a little bit too much. So this one, especially this with the kind of like with the god rays and the lighting coming in from the side, is going to be our best bet. And this is kind of what we were, this is kind of what I was thinking it would look like anyway. And it just seems like it's the best. It's the best choice. So. Yeah, nothing too crazy there, and I think that this is actually really cool to have. It still has those architectural elements. It just doesn't have like the window blooming them out.
And we have the stuff in the back that's nice and deep, and we can do stuff with there.
It's cool. Do you want to say anything else about this guy? I mean, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory and straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's just we're trying to do a couple of things at once, right? We're trying to show a bit of the keep and a bit of the region as well as a close-up of the character. But the main thing is that we're showcasing and framing the UI and making sure that you have everything you need there. And the character's secondary to that, but at the same time, like you say, it's the closest we're ever going to see them. So we want to make sure you get a good, flattering, close-up.
Oh, and one other thing I should mention is that when we pull up this view from the tactical battlefield, we're not going to cut to this close-up. We're just going to kind of center over the character in the isometric view and maybe zoom in on him a little bit. He'll fill the same area though, so we can use the same UI here.
Yeah.
I think it's a good solution
Yeah,
for not having to have like an additional set, because normally we wouldn't tell people this, but like we do a lot of smoke and mirrors on the strategy side. This set, even in the kind of like temporary placeholder stuff that we're working with right now, where is it? Is it underneath the map? Is
I'm
it
not exactly
off
sure.
to the side?
It's
Jeff put it
something
somewhere.
like
It's
It's
basically
a full
like
3D set.
I believe that the map is not very big. It looks big,
Right.
but it's actually probably, I don't know. We should talk to Jeff about that, exactly how big it is. But the sets for like this view and the keep view and whatever, they're just kind of like underground in weird places, and then we just cut the camera over there, and
we just teleport over.
It's just all smoke and mirrors and bullshit, and
But it saves a load, right?
exactly right. It saves the load, but we wouldn't be able to do that on the tactical map unless we like had these sets as a part of every single tactical map. That would be the way that you would kind of smoke and mirrors it without doing a load. And that just seems really infeasible, like having so many different tactical maps. You wouldn't want to also like load all these things in. So,
But also I think that presentation is odd if you go from the tactical
I
map
agree.
to an interior,
I agree.
it's like
Yeah.
your character's in two places at once, whereas I prefer it being grounded and more there's better continuity, right? You're seeing them in context and you can still access that info, so I think that's a better way to do it.
Do you want to take some questions about that? Do we have any questions about that?
A couple came through. Actually, somebody asked about if we would see this during the tactical battle. So
Oh,
you just
cool.
answered that.
Cool.
See if anybody else has
I
any
hope
more
that
questions.
answer is satisfactory for you.
There was a question, how many salutes can this character do?
Oh my god, this is exactly where we would do it. I didn't even think about it. Oh, okay. So we have to have some sort of system in here. That's we're gonna file that one away. File that one away. I think that there will be magical Easter egg keys on the keyboard that you'll be able to hit to make this character do something. I think that's a really good idea.
All right. Salutes.
Shout out to whoever suggested that.
So Solar Bliss asks, who's handling UI duties on our team? The artist? And this is a good question.
Sure.
Yeah.
We decided, so doing our kind of roadmap, like scheduling stuff, we found that we don't have like enough work for a full-time concept artist, really, but we really like Derek and we want him to be on the game full-time. And the alternative would be to have, we don't really have a UI sort of expert in-house anymore. So we were like, so our traditional thing would be like, okay, we'd have half of Derek and then he would spend half his time working on some other project. And then we'd have a chunk of our like, in-house UI expert kind of person. But we don't really have that position filled anymore. So we were like, okay, like Derek's already done some exploration of it. We'll just have him do it and he'll be full-time on Massive Chalice the whole time, which is, it's just better for people to be full-time on one project anyway.
I think it'll help us develop the UI more than we were planning to do.
I think so too.
Because I think the way we had it planned, it was going to be a lot of look dev on our side, and then it was probably going to sit for a while, and then we were going to hand it off and get everything made quite quickly.
Right.
And I think that this will probably, if we're smart, we can make it work for our advantage, I think, and we can refine it a little bit more than we had planned before.
I think it's good. I think it's going to work out really well. Also, my fiance just texted me and she told me that my hair looks good. Is that nice?
Oh,
Thanks,
that's
Kate.
cute.
I love you.
Oh. Waving People asks, are the different armors going to have separate visual effects on the character, or anything going to affect that at all? I think.
What does that mean? Visual effects.
In terms of like the different armors, we're going to model them. They're going to look different on the character.
We have.
So you'll get a good view of them right here.
What we have planned for armor is that each base class will have its sort of base armor set, and then 2 upgrades, which will just be, right now we're thinking of those as just being linear upgrades, so that they'll just give you more health and more armor and more evasion, various levels of that, and they'll just look a little bit more badass than your current one. And then we'll have one set of demon armor, cadence armor. Stop calling them demons. One set of cadence armor per class, which will look really different. That will be like a completely new, like head to toe kind of like revamp of the character's armor that will be weird and inspired by the demon design, the cadence design. I just did it.
It'll be
I lasted about
great for
10
cosplay.
seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, great for cosplay.
It'll look like demon pajamas.
It
that
should
you
look
kind
cool.
of slide up with little footies. It'll be great.
It should look very cool. And I'm stoked for that. Yeah. But that's our plan for that. They should all have visual impact on the character.
Cool. I think that's
okay. Sweet.
I have plenty more questions, so we can move on.
So we're gonna jump over to the keep view. So this is another thing that we've been playing around with, and so this is, again, thinking about when you jump into the keep view and what should it look like, and how can we show off some of the architecture. And
again, the keep view is your individual keeps in the world, right? Where you place the characters in terms of setting them up as regents of a region and marry them to the partners.
Yep. And
so separate from the Massive Chalice capital, the capital room.
Right. So so there will be 5 of these around the realm, and they might look like this. So this one had that same problem where they're not going to be looking at you, right? You'd see like the regent would be sitting in this throne, and then the partner will be off to the side here, kind of like we have it in the placeholder mock-up. But they'd kind of be looking over here, and it just gives it a detached view. This one, very similar, where it's giving you that more top-down God view that you would, and it's weird because you have this a lot, right? Like in the strategy view, you have this kind of like really pulled out kind of God view, top-down thing. In the tactical view, you have again a pulled out top-down thing. But this is our chance to like get really close to the characters and have it like feel more intimate. So something where it is more straight on, I think is just like a better way to go. So this was the one that we liked the best, and we did a quick rev of this, and you can see. So again, the UI will be on the left, and the regent, the partner, will be here, and this is very similar to the placeholder that we have in the game right now.
Yeah.
We did one revision of it, which was these windows are really cool, and they have those kind of brutalist elements, and they can be swapped out to kind of represent the different keeps, which is great. So it was trying to get that in there, and then also the secondary color of the house. It would be really cool if that was represented. So Derek did this revision where you can see there's kind of like this trim on the throne and on the stuff, and then there's like this window in the background that could represent that. And so this is kind of what we're going to go with for that.
Good question from the chat though, is that partner doesn't get to sit down?
Oh man, yeah, is that
We could put in a chaise.
Yeah, it might be something to think about. We
a
definitely
little
like
a little tiny seat?
a little stool. They come out and then they like unfold a chair and put it down. We definitely want you'd be able to tell at an easy glance who is the regent, who is the partner.
Yeah, and Jeff was the one who did that. We should actually ask him because he just kind of busted that out during the placeholder, and I kind of like the vibe of it, where it's like, okay, especially I like the vibe of it because it's like gender agnostic. It's not always like the man in the chair with like the woman attending him. It's like a lot of times it can be flipped in this world, and I think it's awesome. And because it's neutral, I feel like it's fine to have the other the partner kind of feel like more of a guest.
Also because
not a guest. That sounds rude.
Well, it needs to be
That's not
apparent
the right
when you
word.
don't have a partner, right? Like,
Yes.
if the partner has passed away or doesn't have one, then we need a place for you to be able to click some UI information for there anyway. So maybe we might want to do more passes on this with the partner chair. Figure out where that's going to go. That's cool.
But it could be a smaller chair,
Yep.
kind of off to the side or something. That's
Like a milking stool.
Yeah, a milking stool. I like that. That's cool. Any questions about this? I mean, this one, again, pretty straightforward. We're just trying to, once we have placeholder things in the game that we like to kind of do a full concept pass and then, only do the models and the animations and the materials and everything once and the effects, and then be like, we already knew that we were happy with it, so it will most likely stay.
Here's a question. Are we going to do one throne room per keep?
Our plan right now is to have one kind of generic throne room like this.
Well, let's talk about the details.
Let's talk.
Right, because you kind of mentioned it, but without probably enough context. So the window in the background, the house colors, and potentially the throne.
Yes,
possibly.
Derek, I'm not going to show them to you because you'll fall in love with them.
Yeah, we don't
listeners,
show them.
viewers.
But all of those things could be used to change this from one region's keep to another, without changing the whole room.
Yep.
Right.
And Derek took a crack at what alternate thrones might look like, and they're amazing. He drew the most badass thrones, and now that we've told you about them, you should post on our forums and say that you want Tim Schafer to give us more money to model thrones in Massive Chalice so we can have custom thrones. But right now, it will just be the window and the and the stuff. And if somebody gets really inspired, they will model the cool thrones. Sweet. Anything else about the keep view?
Not really.
Okay. So now we're going to jump into so this is the fourth region in Massive
Someone did
Chalice.
suggest demon head trophies. Would be cool.
Trophies. I like that. I like it.
I do like old games where you, like X-Wing Alliance did this, where you have your own little room and you kind of collect stuff, and throughout the game it kind of pops in there. I'm sure the more recent games have done that. I think Mass Effect kind of feels like that, whereas you play the game.
The trophy room.
Yeah, we'll see if that fits in with this. That's cool.
So we're calling this the Black Sands. A lot of this was very inspired from these black beaches that we found. Where do you remember where those were, Andy? I feel like where?
Iceland.
Iceland. And they're amazing because it's actually like volcanic rock that's been pulverized into sand. And it looks just very weird and awesome and whatever. And there was also like these kind of the green lichen, right, that you had picked out
Yeah,
from
yeah,
some
yeah.
things.
I think that was from Iceland too.
And how you get this really awesome contrast between like the black ground and
Yeah.
the you know, these really bright greens and stuff. Also these kind of swirly circular shapes, you know, thinking back to that are like multi-layered texturing approach with like the things. A lot of them have been kind of squares or triangles or things like that, and having more swoopy circular things is really cool.
And that was to tie in with the geysers and the mud pools, all those round concentric shapes.
Yep. So that was the and we also had the concept of bones, having these like really cool bleached white bones to stick out against the, again, like very high contrast. I feel like I'm learning more about art on this project than I have maybe ever. I don't feel like such an ass when I say things like, "Oh, you can see the contrast between the this and that." It doesn't make me feel like a jerk, which is, I feel like I'm starting to kind of maybe be dangerous. So the geysers, that was another thing, is that we had a lot of, and I feel like this came from your work on the cave. There were a lot of like really cool Old Faithfully geysery kind of images that you had, and it was something that you brought, and we were like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And we like, and I think that we showed this on a previous Teamstream, this sort of like a blocker that can go from being a low blocker that you can see and shoot over to being a tall blocker that you can't see through and you can't throw things over. And we kind of experimented with that, and it seemed like a really cool concept, and we could put it in here, and they're timed, and yeah, so we're like, cool, that'll be a big part of this environment, is that we won't have a lot of tall things in the environment, but when the geysers go off, they will sort of like stand in for the tall things and really change the sight lines turn to turn on the map, and it seems awesome. Derek, also, this one is hot off the presses, but we found that we needed some more blockers after the initial map that we'll show you here in a minute, and so he's just doing some like,
These are cool.
So these are like medium blockers right here. Again, the things that you can't see through, but you can throw things over.
These awesome plants are
and these
great
are like
for little dashes of colour.
Yeah, and it's very cool how the green and this sort of like darker green, bluer green, really pop out against the. That's awesome. So these would be the smaller blockers. Are going to be made up of clusters of these plants, and then he's got some cool bones. The other thing that we found is that the big bones were not really working for medium or tall blockers or anything, because you kind of want them to be curvy and porous, much like myself. I don't know what that means, but you want
they're too thin and bendy.
You want like a big bone
to block any
to
side.
it's like curvy, and it's like it doesn't take up enough space. It's not girthy enough to really fill that 2x2 square. So like it feels like you should be able to see through it, and then it's confusing because it's big, and so it just doesn't seem like they're going to work as big blockers. But
I think the big ones we do will have to be more like a hero one-off.
Yep. And I
sort of
really
thing.
like that. Somebody suggested like a big skull.
Well, if you go back one image, there was
This big ass skull over here, and that could be like a huge medium blocker.
Yeah.
Right. That takes up, I don't know, some weird shape on the map. But yeah, and I think that's the way to go with it, is that we can use the bones as like small blockers like this. Yeah. But then have big hero pieces that are, and they should really stand out, just being like super white against the blackness.
Yeah.
So hey, we're gonna jump into the video game, and show you the Black Sands.
This was just a test map to like start building some of this stuff together and have a place to put it.
I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. Okay.
Game time.
And Panya did some kind of preliminary effects on this level as well, just giving us these really cool kind of like ambient ash effects that are kind of floating around in the air.
Yeah, we have a lot. It's past preliminary. I think.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
really
this
awesome.
is like I feel like we could ship that. It's really awesome. Also notice, like we'll get into this a little bit later, but we have an alchemist in the game, which is cool because we've really only been rolling with 2 of the 3 classes. But let's just talk about the environment art here for a minute. And like, is there anything that you'd want to mention about this specifically?
Well, like John was saying, this is a test level, so it's as much about trying to find out what we need as it is about putting things into practice that we've already developed in the concept. So it's just like a test bed, right? So we make a small area and we do it as good as we possibly can with the few things that we already have designed, and then we play it, we look at it and see how it works and figure out what more we need to really make it feel whole. And this one is one of the more successful ones, I think. It's pretty good, even though it's very stark. It's like the starkness and the simplicity of this one really feels like a characteristic rather than a shortcoming. It really feels like a...
And one thing from playing on this map, it is pretty small. It really only extends out to about here, you know. So this is about 1/4, maybe a little bit bigger than a quarter of like how big a final map would be, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a third. Yeah, it's larger than a quarter, But yeah, from playing on it, one thing that we've learned is that a lot of our tests with these geysers sort of showed us that, like, in a lot of the testing that we did with them, they were just with one character, and they felt very effective as being just this like 1x1 blocker, because it really messed up your line of sight when you're just cruising one character around. But the thing that I've really noticed is when you have a team of characters and you only have a 1x1 tall sight blocking thing, it's not as effective, just because your characters are kind of a little bit spread out just by nature, and they can all sort of see around it a little bit. So one of the things that we've talked about is making like a fissure, basically like a 1x3, 1x4, something like that, like a crack in the ground that actually spits up the geyser stuff. And you know, talking about it, it seems like it won't be that difficult to modify the geyser effects that we have, and that way we can just have them be more impactful to the line of sight, even when you have like your team sort of spread out. Like when the 1x3 sort of like blasts upwards, it'll really like mess with the line of sight of your characters. So and we'd also like to mess around with the we'd like to mess around with the geysers potentially being letting you walk over them, so that we could actually use them as like gates to corridors, which could be really interesting. Because right now they're invalid for walking. They count as small blockers, even when they're down. So like this one over here, like I can't walk onto the square. I need to walk to the squares like all around it, and that might be cool. But then we have to solve like what happens when you go on, when it goes off when you're standing on it, and maybe that's something we can solve. Maybe we can't. Like we'll see. But yeah, do you have anything else that you want to talk about with the art of this environment, Andy?
No, not really. I mean, it's very early. This is a lot of stuff that's going to get changed and tweaked and developed, but it looks great so far for a first stab.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take some questions.
And in case you missed it last week, we got placeholders for all of our enemy types in the game right now.
That's right.
They'll act as either a melee or a ranged guy, just kind of a default one right now, but it's cool to see them in, and we've got much more stuff to show.
And Pani's messing around with the effects. You see this character, the swapper, like, it's looking pretty awesome, even though it's like placeholder mesh. It's like we're starting to get some effects that are a little bit more advanced than placeholder, which is awesome.
Yeah.
If I put a question mark after awesome, does it count as a question? No, but it's
yes.
good feedback.
Thanks.
Waving People asks, this seems like quicksand might be an interesting approach for something here.
That's not bad. Our plans were kind of to use Save Quicksand for the tidal desert.
Tidal desert, yeah.
But like I could see it working here with like mud, you know, having some like gross, dark mud. I thought I would just run around the rest of the map and kind of show people the whole thing.
And Angry Wombat mentions that it'd be cool to push the guys in the geysers, and that would be another reason we'd want to make them pathable, because then you'd be able to use knockback into a geyser and have them do damage. So it'd be cool.
The bones, I completely forgot that Jeremy was setting this up, right?
Yeah.
That Jeremy was using the bones sort of as these like awesome, you know, on the periphery of the level, and it works. I think it works really well when they're big. The one that doesn't really work is this guy right here. Yeah, this is what we were talking about. So this is a medium blocker, this tile that you shouldn't be able to like shoot through or see through.
Or it looks completely like you should be.
It looks like you should be able to, so we're probably going to punt that one away. This one is more successful, although this is more of a rock than a piece of bone,
yeah,
right?
when you put them together like that, they don't look like bones anymore. So.
Yeah. But having them like this and having them in the like as hero pieces and stuff, I think will totally work.
Yeah, we won't need to fill the whole level with them anyway, will we? Just a few will get the flavor.
Yep.
Here's one more environment question from Cthulhu. Will there be one normal woods/grassland environment?
Oh, no. Well, we haven't shown the last one.
Yes.
Maybe.
So maybe.
We'll show the next one on the next team.
You know, we want everything to have its own unique spin on it, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be in some woods or on some grass.
Right.
Right? And then there's a couple good questions about gameplay coming in if you want to field some of those right now.
Yeah. Can you go grab Matt and Wright? Unless there are any more questions about art. We only have 3 mics, so
I think we're good.
we're going to get somebody else in here.
Okay, let me de-mic.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
So Tiburton asks, with 2 ranged hero classes and only 1 melee, do we feel the game is moving to focus more on ranged combat? Well, as you'll see, I don't know if we're going to show off all the Alchemist stuff today because it's just barely gotten in, but he's got a very different take on range, but he also has a melee attack.
Right.
So his default is actually melee. So he's kind of a weaker melee guy with a grenade throwing secondary attack, basically. Most of our enemies, I think it's about half and half in terms of range and melee. So it's gonna be a mix of both. I don't think we're going. We focused a lot on getting the early projectiles in, and now we're focusing on the Caberjack this month. And so I think we're really building up our melee repertoire and really making that a more interesting part of the game. So no, I think it's gonna be mixed, and we're trying to like ride that cool balance between the two, where you can have some different strategies, and you're also not boned if you have a bunch of melee guys or you have a bunch of ranged guys.
Mm-hmm. Well put. Okay, welcome to Teamstream. New Double Finer. Oh wait, are we gonna take a break first?
We might have to.
Did we just have to? We'll be